If you've still got your chips, it's time to use them. Welcome to the Gianni YouTube show. Hope you guys are well. It's game week 37, the penultimate game week of the season, and it's a big, fat, juicy double game week. We like it because it's doubles for good teams, like Chelsea are playing well, City, Newcastle. We can stock up on doublers and we can activate that bench boost, which I know many of us will be doing. If you've still got triple captain, this could be the week for you. If you've still got free hit, this is still probably the week for you. So we'll have a look at some obvious transfers in. We'll look at some of those teams I've just mentioned. But first, let's just have a look. This is my team selection video. So let's see how I got on in game week 36. It was a green arrow. Fairly happy to get 107 points. Fairly happy to be in the top 50k. I've not been there for a while. I was at 45k about 10-15 weeks ago, and I'm back there now, 46,878. Returns all over the shop. Difficult for those that are heavily invested in Newcastle defence. We expected a clean sheet there, so Dan Burn late clean sheet wipeout was a bit annoying. You could say similar for those on Man City defence, or Edison. Again, a pointless, silly goal to concede when the game is already won. We saw it with Newcastle, we saw it with City. Hopefully these guys can keep clean sheets in the double, but elsewhere, attacking returns all over the shop. Nicholas Jackson, we've talked about him a lot on this channel, is a very good FPL option right now, as is Madueke, as is Gallagher, as is Palmer. Even the likes of Cucurella coming in clutch there as well. Maguire's injured. Bruno Fernandes was injured in 36. We don't know if Bruno will be available in 37. We do know Maguire won't be available in 37, so you might have some transfers out there. If we're looking to replace Bruno, we should probably look at the big transfers in. Who do you go to? Well, we've just seen my midfield there. The likes of Gordon, Palmer and Foden, sure, they're all doing really well. But are we looking at punting on a midfielder that's a bit more lowly owned? And if so, who is that midfielder? So before we see my team for my team selection, let's have a look at some data from Fantasy Football Scout, who sponsor this stream. And guys, please do hit that like button nice and early, and please do consider subscribing to the channel. Still loads of content planned for the run-in, and pre-season, is going to be a big one. So this is interesting, this data. We're going to have a look just at the last 3 game weeks. I'm doing that because that's when Richarlison was available. That's when he started featuring. Richarlison's not had a set of 90, so we're going to look at the per 90 stats for some of the game's best midfielders. In terms of expected goal involvement, Bruno and Salah, top of the charts, 1.27, right? XGI per 90 in the last 3 game weeks. Obviously, Bruno's missed minutes in there. So has Salah, actually. Saka is ranked 3rd behind them both. Really good numbers for Saka, who you might go back to in 38 if you don't own. But I just want to look at the Spurs lads, because the big decision this week is, if we're buying Richarlison, who are we buying him for? Are we selling Son because we don't have a Spurs asset? So let's compare their numbers. Or are we selling a Bruno? Now, if Bruno's fit, the numbers we've just seen, 1.27 XGI, the best performing midfielder in the game per 90 for XGI is Bruno alongside Salah. It'd be a difficult sell. I know United are rubbish. I know United are playing poorly. Homes against Arsenal and Newcastle aren't easy, but there is one man in that team that stands up and gets counted, and that is Bruno Fernandes. He has been performing throughout this bad run for Man United. So look, Richarlison is actually 14th in terms of the best midfielder. I thought Richarlison's numbers were going to be higher than this per 90. He clocks 0.67 XGI, averages in the last 3, 0.52 XG. There's a goal threat there, sure. He's the 14th best midfielder in terms of XGI per 90 in the last 3 games. Now, bear in mind, some of those midfielders above him have had really limited minutes, like Lo Celso. So the numbers aren't bad by any stretch. But when you go down to the 21st best midfielder, that's a mouthful, 21st best midfielder, you get Heung-min Son. He's at 0.55 XGI. So could you consider making the sideways switch from Son to Richarlison? Now, ordinarily, you wouldn't do it. You'd go it sideways, same team, similar investment, similar expected data, and probably similar output. The reason we like Richarlison is because it's Burnley at home. Same reason we like Son. That is a high ceiling fixture, and then it's Man City at home. But Richarlison in, Son out, gives you money in the bank. And it might be money in the bank you need in game week 38 if you want to move to a Saka or a Mo Salah even. So see how you can play around with the funds. Now, if you're going Bruno to Richarlison, again, you get a bit of money. So what does that do? Does that help you in 38? So it's worth considering both Son and Bruno out for Richarlison if you think in 38 you want to go back to Mo Salah for Klopp's farewell at Anfield, for example. So this data is really interesting. It shows me that actually if Bruno's fit, I'm reluctant to sell him, but just maybe you have to go down that route. But maybe Son out is a better option than we think, purely because surely Richarlison is starting games. Surely Richarlison is playing number 9 against Burnley. And yes, he doesn't have the penalty appeal that Son has. But when they're on the pitch together, and we've seen enough of that this season, when Son and Richarlison are on the pitch together, Richarlison does look like the greater goal threat when he's playing number 9. So, my team. Shall we have a look? So, I've just told you my points from last week. Happy to be inside the top 50k. How I'm setting up is I'm activating that bench boost. Like, I think if you've got a chip now, you've got to use it. Because game week 38 is so unpredictable. Sure, a free hit in 38 could work, but I prefer to free hit in 37. And definitely don't want to be bench boosting in 38. There's always surprise lineups in 38 from some of the middling teams especially. And then triple captain, obviously if you got it, you want to go on a doubler. We'll talk about captaincy in a minute. In terms of transfers for my team this week, we can see, because I'm bench boost, I've got no benching dilemmas. That's quite nice for once. At the moment, I do have Harry Maguire in my team, so I think I'm very likely just to make the straight swap of Webster in for Maguire. Now, Webster is worth discussing because Brighton defence, many that are selling Maguire, will already have triple Spurs, triple Man City, triple Chelsea. And now look at the doubling teams and go, now where do I go? The good news for Brighton is they kept a clean sheet against Aston Villa. And Aston Villa clocked a whopping XG of 0.06 or 0.07. Like, pretty much Villa didn't have a sniff. Now that is promising for those that want to go to a Brighton defender. The fixtures for Brighton aren't easy, but Aston Villa weren't easy and they kept a clean sheet there. They go to Newcastle and they host Chelsea. Now, sure, a clean sheet is is unlikely, but perhaps more likely than a Man United clean sheet. I would say so. I would personally rank the Spurs and the Chelsea defenders above Brighton, and certainly the Newcastle defenders, but I would rank Brighton defenders above Man United defenders now. So if you're buying a Brighton defender, where'd you go? Well, Lewis Dunk is the most expensive, but again, if we're thinking about game week 38 punts, I can afford Maguire to Dunk, but then it restricts me in 38 if I want to get to a Mo Salah. So I'm looking at going to one of the other guys. So Igor is 4.3, Webster is 4.2, Barco is 4.0 and probably won't start both games, but Barco is the left back. Igor will play left back if Barco doesn't, but can play centre back. Webster hasn't been getting game time, but now Van Heck is out. I expect Webster to play both. There is a world in which Barco plays left back and Igor and Dunk are the centre back combination and Webster is still benched. So I'm going to wait and see if we get a little bit more information about Brighton. I would expect Webster to start both games, but he's not nailed. I would argue Igor is more likely to start both games at 4.3, or maybe worth the 0.1 extra. Maybe I go there. Lewis Dunk for sure, if money's not an issue. You get the best goal threat from Dunk as well. He's 5.2. So a Brighton defender for those two fixtures, maybe you get lucky and you get one clean sheet. In 38, you'll probably be benching them, by the way. So that's where I'm at with a very straight swap. Now that's one option that I could do this week with the Maguire injury. The other option is to try and force Richarlison into this team. Now, because I've got 3 Spurs, which from a personal point of view is disappointing. It was naive of me to go triple Spurs on wildcard, knowing Richarlison was going to be back fit. We knew he would be back for the double in 37. I should have left the option open. So now if I want Richarlison, I've got to sell Son, or I've got to sell Vicario or Porro. Now, there's no defenders that can replace Porro that I like. I've already got to replace Maguire. I don't want double Brighton defence, and I've already got triple Chelsea, Newcastle City. So there is a world in which I sell Vicario to Onana. Now, I know I don't like Man United defenders. Onana's slightly different. Onana could get good points in the double because of the save points, right? He's going to be busy. We know that. It's probably more likely Onana blanks in both games because United are going to concede in both, you would think. But maybe Onana could be an option. Now, if I did that, it would allow me then a Spurs slot. I could go, keeps on, I could go Bruno to Richarlison. So one option would be this week, Maguire out for a Maguire out for a Brighton defender. more likely Igor or Webster. Or option 2 is a 4-point hit. It's very aggressive. It's perhaps naive, and I don't think I'll do it. It would be a Nana in for Rocario. It would be a Brighton defender in for Maguire still. Got to make that move. And then I can go and keep Son, and I can go Bruno to Richarlison. There is an option 3. An option 3 is I make the Maguire move out to a Brighton defender in. No 4-point hit. And I just go Son to Richarlison. Do I think in a standalone game week, Richarlison outscores Son is the question. Well, we've just seen the per 90 stats. There's not much between them. We know Son is going to more likely play 180 minutes. I don't think Richarlison will. And for 37, money's not an issue. If money's an issue, and if it's about who's the better value pick in 37, I would say Richarlison is. But if money's not an issue in 37 per se, given a choice, I do think I'd rather have Son just for the minutes than Richarlison. There's very little in it, and I don't think it's necessarily worth a transfer. Very likely scenario, I will be using option 1, right? We'll talk about captaincy in a minute, but let's just look, if I use option 1, how my team in 38 looks, because the reason I'm going boring in 37 is so I can go fun in 38. So if I do that, in 38, I can have a little bit of fun, right? I would have, if let's say Webster or Igor comes in, I have 1.1, 1.2 in the bank, and I'd have 2 free transfers. So what do I do with those 2 free transfers? Well, going into game week 38, straight away, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to sell Son. I'm going to sell Gordon. I know Son goes to Sheffield United away. I know Gordon has Brentford away. They're not bad fixtures, either of them, but they're not the best fixtures for them. And it allows me to get Mo Salah. If I sell them both to get Mo Salah, I've also got to sell Bruno. So I'd be selling 3 very good midfielders, but one of them would be on the bench anyway, and then I'd bring an enable in for one of them. So let's look at my 38 team. So let's say I sell Son, Gordon and Bruno for a -4. That allows me to bring in Salah and Havertz, and then a nobody on the bench. It means I don't have a benching headache. I'm not benching a premium midfielder, because there was a world in which I was benching like a Gordon or a Son anyway, or a Bruno. It then allows me the money for Salah, the money for Havertz. Both of them could be really fun on the final day. The reason I want Salah and Havertz for the final day is it's the narrative behind it, and we often see goals. Their opponents, Wolves and Everton, will have nothing to play for. It could be Salah's last game in a Liverpool shirt. It's Klopp's last game. The atmosphere at Anfield will be emotional. It will be great. It will be high scoring. It will be a party atmosphere, I hope. And at Arsenal, well, the pressure will probably be off them. Let's assume City keep winning. But even if it's not, they've got to go big on the final day, because they don't know they will have a chance of winning the title on the final day. And even if they don't have a chance by the final day, let's say Arsenal slip up against Man United and they're out the title race, they'll still, I think, go big against Wolves, because that's against Everton, because that's just what they tend to do. Last season, on the final day, they're out the title race. I think I brought in Gabby Jesus and captained him, and they went and scored 4 or 5 goals. I think that was against Wolves, ironically. So the boring move in 37 facilitates what I think will be loads of fun in 38. Salah and Havertz in, yes, please. So look, that is the loose plan. Let me know what you think to that plan. Let's talk about captaincy in 37, though, because if you've got your triple captainship, you've got to use it. On paper, Fulham away isn't an easy one for Man City. Very few teams go to Craven Cottage and score big. However, my good mate Dean Jones, who I do Chasing Green Arrows with, said he's a Fulham season ticket holder. He's like, mate, we are done now. We'll be down tools. He doesn't even know if he's going to go to the game. He was like, this could be ugly. And he's always first to say, don't back against Fulham, against Craven Cottage. They can beat anyone. They can turn up. He was like, we're probably on the beach. We're probably done. So I expect it to be fairly comfortable for Man City, and therefore Haaland's nice. And then go into Tottenham. I mean, there's goals in that, isn't there, for Spurs? Could be a basketball match, that one. So I wanted to go differential, but I'm not going to go differential for the sake of going differential. We saw those that did it in 36 that went, I'm chasing, therefore I'm going to back against Haaland. They got punished. 4 goals for Erling Haaland in 36. I'm reluctant to do that in 37. Maybe in 38 that is on, because the likes of Salah and Havertz with their home fixtures in 38, they give you a really nice alternative. I love having a week to back against Haaland. 36 just wasn't that week, and I don't know if 37 is either. It is worth noting, Son or Richarlison do play Burnley at home in one of their fixtures. Now, if you think that's a 5-0 fixture, then Captain Son or Captain Richarlison, I don't have any issue with that. The other guy to look at, because he's ridiculously consistent, is Cole Palmer. But his massive consistency comes at home. Palmer's away form isn't quite the same. Chelsea go to Forest, they go to Brighton, and yes, they're playing well, and yes, they could win both those games. I don't think they're massively high-ceiling fixtures, either of them, for Chelsea, despite just scoring 5 against West Ham. Again, that was a home game against West Ham. I won't be backing Palmer. There's a tiny bit of me that wants to go to a Son or Richarlison if I own him for captaincy, but Haaland just makes complete sense for these 2 fixtures. In game week 38, though, there's a good chance I do back against Haaland because it will be a Hail Mary, one last effort. Guys, you can become a member of this channel if you want all your comments responded to. If you want to be a real part of my live chats, it's pretty much dictated by the members. So do check out our membership, and if you want to be a Ultras member, you can join the WhatsApp group as well. That'll be very active in the summer as well. I guarantee that, with all the transfers and the game coming out. The best part of FPL for me is July, when the game drops, and the pre-season planning. Can't wait for that. Do please hit the buttons on the way out. I know loads of you probably watch the videos and don't hit subscribe. If you fancy hitting the subscribe button, that would mean a lot. And of course, hit that like video. I will be back on Saturday morning with a deadline stream. But for now, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon.